Hello, I'm Jack, and welcome to my video. It's 60 years, almost to the day that the Hansel family moved to Swansea. It was a big move for us. Dad had taken up the chair at Swansea University. He was the first professor there, the first into the new building. That's the big tall building, blue building on the right. He had the top floor corner office. He must have had the best view in Swansea, and I think he was happy there. And the same for Mum. It was a big move for Mum because she was moving back to family. Her mother was in my stake, living with a couple of other elderly ladies, and there were cousins all over the place. Auntie Nancy was just round the corner. That was Mum's best pal. Not far behind was Auntie Mara, who'd been in school with Mum all the way through. Here's Benny by one of the standing stones on the farm, and there were lots and lots of other cousins as well, Richie and Gwen Scare and the Tatanlos families, just essentially from Swansea to Porthcawl. The what's now the M4 strip was all the kind of family. There was also the younger generation, her nieces, who were incredibly useful to Mum as bringing up these families. So you've got Kath here a few years later, and also Lib. So those two made a tremendous contribution. Anyway, my parents moved on Halloween 1965 into Eversley Road, Sketty in Swansea. I don't think it was much of a house. It was too small, and it must have been a tough time because 6 weeks later David was born. So they had 5 children, a newborn in a rickety old rental property. Must have been pretty tough, but they got through it. If we move on to 1966, that was a big year for Wales in both good and bad ways. In a good way, it was the opening of the Severn Bridge. And my dad queued up to be one of the very first people over that, made South Wales far more connected to England, which is great for Dad coming down from Manchester. It was still the South Wales industrial belt. Swansea, a very industrial town. You can see the oil depots here, the boats in Swansea docks. If you look kind of further round, you get to BP Baglan Bay. BP Clandarcy was a mile or two to the left, and then again, if you look at the last photograph, you can see the steelworks to the right. So it meant that coming out of Swansea was a very smelly business. You'd go past the Weaver building, and then the carbon black, and then the oil depot, then the oil refinery, then the chemical works, and then the steelworks. They're all shut now, all of them, every single one. And the terrible thing that happened in Wales that year was the Aberfan disaster. And I can remember vividly coming home and my mum in tears. I didn't really understand the enormity of it then, but a shocking episode. And all those pits and collieries that we used to go past on the way to Naz, they're all shut now. There isn't a single mine open in Wales anymore. So the South Wales industrial belt is not an industrial belt anymore. But from Swansea, when you're on top of Kilvey Hill and you look round, you see the other side of it, because you see the sweep of Swansea Bay, beautiful sweep with its hospitals and universities, and you can see the Mumbles in the distance, which is basically the gateway to the Gower Peninsula, which is absolutely gorgeous. So I think Dylan Thomas's description of Swansea is very apt. It's both lovely and ugly. David was coming on leaps and bounds. He was a bonny baby, very chirpy and happy, and I think everybody in the family loved him. My parents made a move to Woodfield Terrace, I think, or Woodlands Terrace, something like that, up on Town Hill, a rough old house, and I think we were there for about 6 months, an important 6 months. Again, you can look to the east and see the industry. You can look straight ahead and see the chapels and the sea and the vetch field. And you can look to the right and see the Mumbles. We had visitors. Here's Kath and then Janet going off to a party. I do remember talking to the locals about the 66 World Cup. I think there were mixed feelings in Wales. But the fact we moved there was important, even for a short time. Janet went to Cloyne School. Trevor stayed at Tico Primary And then because of where we were living, went to the Neighbours school in Swansea city centre, which wasn't very good, and he wasn't very happy, and he left all his friends behind. But Margaret and I, we transferred to Brimill's Junior School, which we loved, and then on to Bishop Gore. It did mean that from here on, I saw less and less of Jonathan Trevor, which I think suited me down to the ground, actually. The big move that my parents made was moving into Eton Crescents. Lovely road, lovely old Edwardian houses, and my parents bought the scruffiest, most run-down one of them all, and they had a lot of work to do. In the garden, in the back garden here, ripping stuff down. We had a huge bonfire on Halloween and cleared it all up, and that enabled them to reshape it and put a trellis up. Same sort of story in the front garden. They sorted all of that out. And in the house, well, they had to store all their stuff for starters and then reshape it. They tore down a room and created this beautiful hall, and I think got central heating and stuff like that in. So the great thing about the Crescent was not only was the house big enough to put us all up, but there were lots of very, very similar families. Lots of the men were war veterans. They'd come back, they'd established themselves in their careers, academics and lawyers, medics, and then had families. And usually they were quite large families, kind of 4 or 5, it wasn't unusual. Next door was the Davises, Alan and Margaret Davis. Mum knew Margaret Davis from Aberystwyth. I think there'd be a little bit of rivalry there. But Alan was absolutely great, and you can see Margaret Davis here with Margaret Walker just down the road. In between there lived Di Davis, and his family. Mum's big pal was Betty Rees, which was good, and David Rees. And my big pals were the Hibberts, because their son Lawrence was a friend of mine, and they were very kind to me as I grew up. Alan Talvin Davis was an eminent judge, and the Kerfords were kind of local medics. So the Crescent suited, and the beaches suited. We had Swansea Bay very close by, and you can see us all on there. Not the great place for going swimming, so off in Dad's car, round the corner to Limeslade Bay, you get an ice cream at the Apple, and it looks a bit rocky, and it was, but that meant lots of rock pools. There was enough beach for us to kind of go swimming and climbing up on the rocks. Here's a very rare family photograph. You see that everybody was pretty happy here. There's a famous story that we took one of Janet's friends there, and I lobbed one of her shoes into the bushes and was made to walk home. I know, at age 8, about 5 miles. Shocking, if you asked me. Never managed to get an apology out of Mum. It's also Forte's ice cream there. And the Mumbles go just walking on the promenade in the Mumbles. Another family trip that was made often was Mum would go up on Sundays to see Nana, take her a meal. That was really nice. She lived in my stake. And we'd often have a picnic in Forestry Commission or on farmland. And here we all are. And I'd like to, all looking pretty happy up on the top there. And we also went on a big trip, because we went down to Devon. Dad's brother Trevor lived down there, and you can see us with various different inflatables, nice sandy beach going into the water. My relationship with Trevor was difficult. Trevor was pretty toxic. Dad's relationship with his Trevor was one of fondness. I envy him that. So that was 66. Then as we move into 67, David's growing up. Yes, he is. And we'd make occasional trips down to Aberystwyth, but it was a hard journey and feel really car sick in those days. And they were always a little bit kind of, strained really. So we saw a bit, but not much, of Mum's sisters, Auntie Mary and Auntie Celia and their children. We saw massively more of the pack on the Crescent. Here's a kind of typical picture. You've got Jonathan in there, you've got the Rees girls, you've got the Walkers, you've got the Kerfords. I think Trevor and I are just on the right-hand side. Here's Alan and Margaret Davis again with Margaret. Margaret had her special friends, who were the Rees girls. That was nice to see. My friends, I played quite a lot with Jonathan next door, and in particular Lawrence. Lawrence Hibbert lived at number 96. We were big pals, used to roam around the place on our bikes and what have you. His parents had a beach hut at Langland, which was fantastic, so got taken down there on many a time, really enjoyed. I still love Langland Bay and still love Joe's Ice Cream Parlour. This is down in St Helens. We'd go down there with money from Mrs Hibbert's purse and quite often go onto the beach. And when you're on the beach and you look up, you can see Brimmill Junior School, 1890 Education Act, my mum would say. Lots of buildings like this, Bryn Road in front. It's a fine, fine building. And the thing to understand about Bryn Mill or about Swansea is that it's not middle class, working class. It's owner occupied and council. And Bryn Mill was staunchly owner occupied. So little houses, but the people who lived there were very proud of them. Used to go through the back alley, past the houses, past the pub next to the school and get to the school. And here's my class photograph from 67. And, you'd have thought somebody coming from Manchester would have had a tough time, but not a bit of it. I just kind of fitted in really easily straight away. I was also quite big. One of the things, I was big for Wales and short for England. But here I am with Matthew Hall. The two of us later on got into Swansea Schoolboys, which is quite remarkable, really. And here I am, two of my best friends, Timothy Bennett and Michael Stacey. Went to Michael's house quite a few times. His dad used to take us to go and see the Super Swans at the Vetch, Bradford Park Avenue, 5-0. Tony Millington, yes, all sorts of had some good times there, his dad's. It was quite football orientated. Here's Adrian and Paul Greenslade, and I'd worked out by now that I wasn't very good at football and zero skill. And then Mr. Matthews with Wilf, and Mr. Matthews is a complex character. I think for this day and age he slippered us far, far too often. And he could, I remember being told to open my mouth but not actually make any volume when singing in the class choir, which is a bit of a cruel thing to say, but I liked him. I just liked Bryn Mill Junior School. I didn't like Cubs so much. I got thrown out for being cheeky, which I thought was a bit much, just the shame of it, especially as Jenna, and I think later Margaret got quite high up in guides. Talking of Margaret, here she is in full regalia on St. David's Day. Yes, the girls would dress up like this. The boys would have a leek and we'd all munch it during assembly. David was becoming a fine walker, and the garden was taking shape. Look at that, nice lawn, nice trellis, a nice path down. And here's a typical group shot of us all, looking pretty happy, I think. Note that rugby ball. And Charlotte Kerford, I think this must be Charlotte Kerford. Yeah, here she is. So that's out in the back garden. There's Margaret, and then David, and then a little bit later on, this is what the garden looked like as it started to mature. Passion flower, I think this is, and dahlias. Mum loved a little bit of gardening, so I think things were settling down very nicely now for Mum and for Dad. They'd got their niche in Eaton Crescent, in the Uplands. The Uplands, good place to live. Wayne's was our local supermarket. Used to get through the back alley, and this is the back entrance to Wayne's. And there's a selection of other shops as well. The Uplands Bookshop, very famous. There's good grocers next to it. Here's our butcher's shop. Yes, we had a butcher's, and we had a baker's, and we had a chemist, and all sorts of things. Some family trips. This is at Crawley Woods. I think I must have taken this. And then at Carrickenneth Castle, both out of focus. Dad wanted to take us to the Norfolk Broads, a wildly ambitious trip from Swansea. I don't know how well it went, but he'd had a very happy time there as a schoolboy. Here we are on a boat, Mum looking happy, and I think we took one of Janet's friends to kind of cheer her up type thing. Don't know if that worked. We'd carry on going up for our picnics. David's coming on. Here we are with a cow, and then joined by me, Margaret and Janet. Janet not so happy. Margaret was a happy little girl kind of growing up. And so we get to 1969 and kicking off with music, really. Dad was incredibly musical, real talent, I think, soaring away on the violin. But here he is with Janet a few years later. Janet played the viola. Trevor was a good cello player, so lots of music, none of which really did very much for me. And here's a music report. I think I got 4 or 5 in grades, but this is grade 2. And it shows the issue because, yes, I passed and I practiced hard and I got through the pieces. But if you read the criticisms, no real sense of rhythm. I failed the oral, yeah, and sight reading. And I think in later years, my old friend Nigel would have said that's musicality. And I didn't really have it. I could listen to Jonathan next door and he could hear a tune, he could play it, he could put the chords on. I think that's a skill you're born with, and one I would love to have had but never did. The other thing was sport. I mean, I'd love to have been good at sport, and I was useless at football. Swansea is a big rugby town, and from Bryn Mill we would go down to Singleton Park to practice, and I'd hang around at the back, not wanting to get involved. But some teacher somewhere had the inspired idea of making me a prop, because the thing about a prop is you don't really touch the ball very much, you just have scraps. And I blossomed, and to my astonishment, and everybody's astonishment, I got into Swansea Schoolboys. Swansea Schoolboys has been a force. I mean, this is a photograph when they got six of the Alliance squad were for Swansea Schoolboys. And I think there were 30 or 40 primary schools, so it was pretty intense competition. We only played twice, once against Cardiff, and I played there, which essentially made us Welsh champions. So I don't know how that happened, but yeah, I was a Swansea schoolboy. That did a lot kind of for confidence. You can see David, and then here we are at Oxwich Bay, and nice happy photographs. You can see me clutching the rugby ball, and it must have been a bit tough, because if you're not clutching the rugby ball, yeah. So by the time I was finishing at Bryn Mill, yeah, I was on a bit of a high. I was popular. I was playing music for the school assembly to sing along to. I was in Swansea Schoolboys rugby. I had friends at school and on the Crescent. It was a real kind of high spot for me. A couple of other things that happened was that when my last memories of Bryn Mill was watching with the teachers Apollo 10 take off. It was more memorable for me than Apollo 11, so that was the start of a new era. Prince Charles came to Swansea and made it a city, and I was there to see that, and that again is part of an era. And a huge new era for me, off to Bishop Gore Grammar School, with the rest of my class. So that was really quite something. And one of the things I've learned is you have to cherish the highs, because after the highs usually come a few lows. But at that moment in time, I was a Swansea schoolboy. I was in a good place. Okay, that's it. The next episode is all about Bishop Gore Senior School. We'll see how that goes. But thank you very much for listening, and I hope you found it interesting. Bye-bye, bye-bye, bye-bye.